Have you ever just stopped? Stopped everything and looked up? I mean, really looked up at that ancient, silent, cratered face in the night sky. For all of human history, it's been a constant, a dream, a mystery, a companion in the vast, empty blackness of space, our moon. We reached for it. We touched it. We left footprints in its dust, and then we just left. We turned our eyes back to our own world. We assumed those footprints were permanent, a monument to our achievement, a flag planted for all time. But what if that's not how the story ends? What if those first footsteps weren't a period, but just a comma, a brief pause in a sentence that is about to be finished by someone else? What if, while we were looking down, arguing, dividing, and dreaming of yesterday, someone else was looking up, calculating, planning, building, and preparing to not just visit our moon, but to own it? This is not science fiction. This is a celestial chessboard. And while America has been admiring its opening move from 50 years ago, China has been quietly, methodically, and brilliantly executing a long-term strategy to achieve the ultimate checkmate. This is the story of how China will colonize the moon before the United States. Let's rewind the tape. Back to 1969, a giant leap for mankind, the pinnacle of American technological and ideological triumph over the Soviet Union. The Apollo program was a stunning, breathtaking, almost miraculous feat of will. It was a sprint, a glorious, all-out, no-expense spared sprint to the finish line. We won the sprint, we got the gold medal, and then we went home. We hung up our running shoes. We decided sprints were exhausting and expensive. The public lost interest. The political will evaporated. The funding dried up. The moon was, in the words of many, a been there, done that destination. Our gaze turned to the space shuttle, to low Earth orbit, to the International Space Station. We became landlords of a beautiful, but very local, apartment building, while forgetting we once owned a beachfront property on an entire new continent. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, a different nation was watching. They saw our triumph. They saw our retreat, and they learned a very, very critical lesson. A lesson that is at the very core of their entire strategy. They learned that the conquest of space is not a sprint, it's a marathon, a generational relay race. And while the sprinter is catching his breath, the marathon runner is setting a relentless, steady, unstoppable pace. China's space program didn't begin with a bang. It began with a whisper, a slow, deliberate, state-funded, centrally planned whisper. It was never about flags and footprints. It was about permanence and power. Their entire approach is fundamentally, philosophically different. Think of it like this. The American approach to the moon was like a camping trip. We went, we set up a flag, we collected some rocks, we took some incredible pictures, and we left. We proved we could do it. The Chinese approach? It's not a camping trip. It's real estate development. It's surveying the land. It's checking the soil. It's planning the infrastructure. It's laying the foundations for a subdivision, for a whole new city. They are asking the questions a property developer asks, not the questions a tourist asks. Where is the water? What minerals are available? How can we use the local resources to build, to create fuel, to sustain life? How do we establish a permanent, self-sustaining presence? This difference in mindset is everything. Now, to understand how they plan to do this, we have to look at their progress. And it is staggering. But it's not flashy. It's a step-by-step checklist, and they are ticking every single box, one after the other. It started with their human spaceflight program, Chang'e. They learned to dock spacecraft in orbit with their Tiangong space stations. First Tiangong 1, then Tiangong 2, and now the magnificent, permanently crewed Tiangong space station, a cornerstone of their orbital infrastructure. They've mastered long-duration spaceflight. They've conducted thousands of scientific experiments. They've learned how to live and work in space. Check. Then they turned their eyes to the moon, but they didn't go for the headline grab. No astronauts. Not yet. They sent scouts, robotic scouts. The Chang'e program, named after the Chinese goddess of the moon. Poetry and ruthless efficiency hand in hand. Chang'e 1 and 2 orbiters. They mapped the moon in incredible high-resolution detail. They weren't just making pretty pictures, they were creating geological surveys. They were looking for minerals, for resources, for the best landing sites, not for a flags and footprints mission, for a colony. Then, Chang'e 3, a lander and a rover, Yutu, the Jade Rabbit. It touched down on the lunar surface, the first soft landing on the moon by anyone since 1976. Let that sink in. For nearly 40 years, no one had even touched the moon softly. China did it, and they sent back data, reams of it. But they weren't done. Chang'e 4. This was a masterstroke. They did something no one had ever done. They landed on the far side of the moon, the dark side. This is incredibly difficult because you lose direct radio contact with Earth. So what did they do? They first launched a relay satellite, Chang'e, to a point in space beyond the moon to bounce the signals back. They built the infrastructure first. They solved the communication problem before they attempted the landing. This is the mindset of a colonizer, not a visitor. Chang'e 4 landed, and it began studying the geology of the far side, a completely unexplored region. The scientific value was immense. The strategic value? Even greater. It proved they could land anywhere, anytime. Then, Chang'e 5. This was the exclamation point. They launched a mission to the moon that landed, collected pristine lunar samples, launched back off the lunar surface, rendezvoused with a spacecraft in lunar orbit, and returned the samples to Earth. This is a rehearsal. This is a full dress rehearsal for a human mission. Every single step of a human landing and return mission was tested with robots. The complexity is breathtaking, and they nailed it on the first try. This cadence, this relentless, step-by-step, incremental progress is how you run a marathon. There are no missed steps, no rushing, just constant forward motion. But orbiters, landers, rovers, that's just the reconnaissance phase. That's just proving you can get there and look around. The real key to colonization is staying permanently. And to do that, you need two things: shelter and gas. Shelter means a base, not a temporary habitat, but a permanent structure. And China is already deep into planning for that. The International Lunar Research Station, or ILRS, announced in partnership with Russia, though let's be clear, this is a Chinese-led project. This is their answer to NASA's Artemis program. But again, the difference in mindset is stark. Artemis is glorious. It's about returning astronauts, including the first woman and first person of color, to the moon. It's about international cooperation through the Artemis Accords. It's inspiring, but it's also mired in political debates over funding, dependent on the success of new, incredibly complex rockets and spacecraft like the SLS and Orion, and subject to the changing winds of American presidential administrations. A new president can come in and change the entire direction, the entire timeline. It's happened before. The Chinese ILRS? It's a state-planned, centrally funded, long-term strategic national priority. It is not subject to election cycles. Their 5-year plans look decades into the future. They have laid out a clear timeline: crewed landings in the 2030s, with the construction of a full-scale, permanently crewed base at the lunar South Pole by the 2040s. Why the South Pole? This is the most important real estate in the entire solar system. And that brings us to the gas: water. The lunar South Pole is believed to harbor vast quantities of water ice, trapped in permanently shadowed craters where the sun never shines. Water is the oil of space. It is life. It is breathable air when split into oxygen and hydrogen. It is drinking water. It is radiation shielding. But most importantly, it is rocket fuel. When you split water into hydrogen and oxygen, you create the most powerful chemical propellants known to man. The same propellants that launched the Apollo missions. This is the master key. This is the resource that changes everything. If you can mine lunar water ice and process it into rocket fuel, you have just created a gas station on the moon. Think about the implications. Right now, to get to the moon, you have to launch from Earth carrying all the fuel you need to get there, land, and then crucially, to get back. This is immensely expensive and limits your payload dramatically. It's like driving across the country with a car so full of gas cans that there's no room for your luggage. But if you have a gas station on the moon, you launch from Earth with just enough fuel to get there. You refuel on the moon. Suddenly, the moon is not a destination, it's a hub, a port, a stepping stone. From the moon, with its much lower gravity, it is 6 times easier to launch into deep space. Missions to Mars, to the asteroids, to the outer solar system all become infinitely more feasible and affordable. You're not launching from the bottom of Earth's deep gravity well anymore. You're launching from the top of the moon's shallow one. Whoever controls the lunar South Pole controls the off-ramp from Earth. They control the gateway to the entire solar system. China knows this. Their missions have been deliberately targeting the South Pole for this exact reason. Their planned base is for the South Pole. They are going for the throat. They are securing the resource that guarantees long-term, self-sustaining dominance. And this leads us to the most controversial, the most terrifying, and frankly, the most genius aspect of their strategy: the legal landscape. Here on Earth, we have the Outer Space Treaty of 1967. It's the foundational document of space law. It says, among other things, that no nation can claim sovereignty over any celestial body. The moon is for all mankind. It sounds great. It's idealistic. But it has giant, gaping loopholes. It says you can't claim territory, but it doesn't say anything about resource extraction. It doesn't say you can't set up a safety zone around your base to prevent interference. It doesn't say you can't effectively control a territory without officially claiming it. What does this look like in practice? Imagine this scenario. It's 2035. China's taken out its land at the lunar South Pole, at the peak of Shackleton Crater, a site with near-permanent sunlight for solar power and direct access to water ice in the shadows below. They begin construction of their ILRS base. They deploy their water mining equipment. They begin producing oxygen and hydrogen. The US-led Artemis program finally arrives a year or two later, aiming for a different spot at the South Pole. But here's the problem. The best real estate, the places with the most accessible water and the most constant sunlight, are limited. There aren't that many prime locations. The Chinese base is now operational. It is a functioning, sovereign outpost of the People's Republic of China. They announce, as is their right under the Outer Space Treaty for safety reasons, a large area of operations around their base, where they prohibit any unauthorized spacecraft from flying or roving, citing the risk of collision, contamination, or interference with their critical life support systems. This area of operations just happens to encompass the only other nearby source of easily accessible water ice. What does NASA do? Do they land miles away in a worse location with no access to water, dooming their astronauts to dependence on expensive resupply missions from Earth? Do they risk a confrontation by landing closer? What is the legal recourse? There is none. There is no space police. There is no lunar government. China will have established a de facto territory through presence, through infrastructure, and through the control of the single most vital resource. They won't have to claim sovereignty. They will simply exercise it. They will have the high ground in every sense of the word. They are playing chess on a board that America doesn't even seem to know exists. America is arguing about the rules of checkers while China is 3 moves from checkmate. So why does this matter? Why should you care about a rock 250,000 miles away? Because this is about more than just national pride. This is about the future economy of quite literally everything. The company that controls the lunar gas station controls the entire highway system of the inner solar system. They will be the gatekeepers. They will set the prices. They will demand a toll. All future scientific missions, all commercial asteroid mining ventures, all missions to Mars will have to go through them, or pay a massive premium to avoid them. The economic and military advantages are incalculable. The nation that controls the moon will have a gravitational slingshot to the rest of the solar system. They will have a massive strategic high ground. From the moon, you can see the entire Earth. You can control communications. You can, with enough development, project power. It is the ultimate strategic military position, a fortress in the sky. This isn't speculation. This is history repeating itself. This is the age of exploration all over again. The European powers didn't just send explorers to the New World for fun. They sent them to find resources, to establish trade routes, to build colonies that would enrich the mother country and extend its power for centuries. The moon is the new world. The solar system is the new ocean. And China is building the fastest, most advanced fleet. They are not doing it with loud proclamations. They are doing it with quiet, relentless, terrifying efficiency. They have the plan, they have the political will, they have the funding and the timeline, they have the technology, and they have the most valuable resource of all, patience. The US has a plan, too. The Artemis program is brilliant and inspiring, but it is fragile. It is expensive. It is political. It is a sprint being run by a committee of marathon runners who keep arguing about the color of the running shoes. The clock is ticking. The footsteps we left in 1969 are fading, slowly being erased by the solar wind, and they are about to be joined by new footsteps. Footsteps that are not coming to leave a flag. They are coming to build a home, a fortress, and a future. The question is no longer if China will establish a permanent presence on the moon. The question is, what will we do when they are already there? Looking down at us from their new home, controlling the gateway to the stars, and asking us if we'd like to pay for the fuel to get anywhere else. The race is on, and we're in serious danger of not just losing, but of not even realizing the race had already started until the winner is already waving from the finish line. From the moon.